joining us on the program right now. Very pleased to have with us from San Francisco, the author of Shooting the Bull. Mr. Guy Smith is with us. Guy, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you, Kim. Sorry I couldn't make it out to the convention. Would have loved to have seen you and the rest of the family there.
It would have been great. Hopefully you can make it to St. Louis next year, and we can set a new attendance record.
We will do that.
All right, so you have a brand new book. Just came out, May the 1st, right?
Absolutely. We decided to put it on May Day just to aggravate the socialists.
It's called Shooting the Bull. I've seen this described as foremost a study of propaganda analysis.
It serves two purposes. One, it is a modern guide to propaganda analysis, and that sounds very academic, but we actually had a lot of fun describing and showing to people how to spot political lies in real time. But the great joy was that we used the gun control industry as the case study from the beginning to the end, and it was all because of the 11 years that I've been authoring and editing Gun Facts, because thank God for Sarah Brady, she gave me more raw material than I knew how to use.
So you have all kinds of examples of the propaganda that we hear from the gun control advocates.
Right, and in each case, what we did in each chapter, we studied one topic, be it assault weapons, gun shows, whatever. And we went through the various lies or misinformation campaigns of the different gun control groups, and we analyzed how they said it, why they said it, how they put it into the media, why the media ran with it, why people are still repeating things that have been debunked for several decades. And what's really interesting, the early reviews are showing that people are having very disquieting moments. They'll read about how they were misinformed about gun control on one issue, and they suddenly realize how that same tactic has been used to misinform them on dozens of other political issues.
Mm-hmm. All right, so, Guy, what is perhaps like one of the most common examples of the propaganda that we see from the anti-gun advocates?
Well, it really depends who's spinning the fairy tale this week.
Do they each have their own kind of go-to?
They do. Politicians always first lean on the lie of fear, and that's the theme throughout the book. When we identify a particular way of propaganda, we call it the lie of something. Politicians love the lie of fear because if they scare you, it gets you to shut down critical thinking long enough for them to move you on to voting for really silly legislation.
Mm-hmm.
The media, their favorite tends to be the lie of context, which is instead of giving you all the information on a specific event, they'll give you one little tiny soundbite, which is completely misleading as to what will happen or what was said. And the policy groups, the Brady Campaign, the Violence Policy Center, they have a plethora of different ways of misinforming people. And sometimes I think they really struggle to figure out which one's going to be the best.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it seems like primarily what they love to do, and what I've seen a lot lately, Guy, is basically try to claim the moral high ground and say, well, if you disagree with us, then you must not care about the victims of gun violence. You're a cold-hearted person. I've been told that I was mocking peace the other day.
It sounds like you visited San Francisco recently with that kind of phrasing. Yeah, that's one of their favorite tactics. The old story about hiding behind children, what I believe to be Michael Moore's favorite propaganda piece, going all the way back to Bowling for Columbine. Is that if you make somebody look cold-hearted or disinterested, then you create an emotional bias against that person. The gun control industry has been vilifying the NRA for decades and decades and decades, quite unsuccessfully, happily. But that's been their central theme. And if that way anything said by an NRA official can be immediately morally discounted in their minds and whoever their acolytes are.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the funny things that's happened is that the media is no longer in control of the national conversation. It's been taken over by the citizens, or what Brian Patrick refers to as the citizen media, and he wrote the academic foreword for my book. And because we now do peer-to-peer communications, those kind of lies don't carry any more weight. Nobody's listening to the politicians or the media as much as they used to.
Yeah, I agree, although I think, certainly where I think we're still making progress. I don't think we're there quite yet. For example, the Fast and Furious case and the complete lack of interest from most media outlets in reporting on this story. I think we've done a pretty good job using the citizen media to get the word out about this. But what we haven't seen yet is that sort of groundswell of not even outrage, but a groundswell of at least recognition that the media is hands off on a story that they really should be covering. And honestly, I think a lot of gun owners are aware of this, but I think that this story has really yet to break through into the general population. And I think in large part that's hampered because, people like the Washington Post and the New York Times and ABC and NBC, and even to a large extent, Fox and CNN have not demonstrated a real desire to cover this story.
That's a great example. One of the problems that we have in the media politician complex is that their audience, the average citizen, doesn't have the time to get any deeper into a story than what can be communicated in 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
The gun control industry has been very smart in crafting very short, repeatable sound bites, which, as people in marketing like myself know, travel very far, very fast, and get under the intellectual radar. The citizen media takes over by analyzing, repeating, proselytizing, just getting the information out there. It's a long, slow process, but it eventually wins. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have 41 states where you can have right to carry now. Because once Florida tripped way back in the late 1980s and became a shall-issue state, the word kept getting out and getting out and getting out, and that slowly started that cavalcade. So the mainstream media may never pick up this story, but gun owners talking to their relatives, to their friends or neighbors, they're getting it out that way.
All right. And Guy, I mean, how do you counter the propaganda? Besides using the citizen media, which I do think is effective, I've actually found over the past week or so the joy of tweaking some of the gun control groups on Twitter. And it's great because they're certainly not used to people pushing back at all. But what are some of the other things that we can do to fight back against that propaganda?
Well, there's really two things that I think are important. One, since all politics is local, become buddies with your local reporter. There's a vast difference between local reporters and national reporters.
Mm-hmm.
People on the national level are occasionally just outright propagandists. Reporters at the local level, though, they're just working writers more than anything else. If you become a buddy with them, if you hand them a copy of Gun Facts, if you become their go-to guy whenever there's a local angle on gun control, then you get to guide them in their thinking. You get to educate them beyond, the Brady campaign sound bites. The other thing, and forgive me if it sounds a little self-serving, make sure you have a copy of Gun Facts ready. One thing I've done is I've trained Google Alerts to tell me whenever somebody mentions Gun Facts on the web. So I see plenty of threads where somebody pops that up, and the anti-gun activists out there in the social media have basically given up. Anytime somebody copies and pastes something out of Gun Facts, they just quit the argument.
Yeah. Well, Guy, again, I'm looking forward to actually reading the book, Shooting the Bull. I plan on picking it up this weekend, and thank you so much for coming on the program, sir.
Well, thank you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
You bet. Guy Smith, the author of Shooting the Bull, which is out now, available at all of your local bookstores, also available in ebook formats for Kindle and for the Nook and for the iPad as well.